This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to BS Report, taping this on a Friday morning. Just did Colin Cowherd's show. He's in LA all week, and we decided, let's run it back and do a podcast. How are you?
I'm great. This is fantastic. I mean, you have a lot of leverage at the company, so you're able to fund projects like this. This is absolutely phenomenal.
I'm able to turn an electrical closet into a podcast studio. That's what this was. It was an electrical closet.
That door,
Yeah.
I feel like a New Orleans lounge. This is really good.
Yeah. And at night, we get a little strobe light. We get girls' belly dancers. Yeah.
I would replace Iceman with Gus Williams.
You know what? I would love to. There's a Gus Williams poster that was on eBay about 2 months ago that there was a crazy bidding war for that I lost. There's this like very rare Gus Williams poster.
He
from
held out,
late
ruined
70s,
his
early
career.
80s. You know what though? Held out, ruined his career, but didn't ruin himself financially. If you go back and read about that, it was actually like a really shrewd financial move for him to hold out. Made a lot more money than he should have made. But you're right, he never gained the momentum back. If that happened now, that would be this would be a great I always thought like things that if they happen now would be awesome. Like just from a sports media standpoint, that would be one of them. Somebody holding out for the whole year.
How about Ali with today's media?
Oh my God.
It would be.
What about the Bruins going into the stands in MSG? The Bruins climbing into the stands to fight in the Rangers fans. That would like blow up the internet right now.
When the blogosphere first came out, I remember there were a lot of discussions. There was dialogue on, how to handle it. And I remember saying to some of the, big shots at ESPN, you have to remember that these things are fireworks shows. But there's another one tomorrow at 8 a.m.
True.
You can't react to every fireworks show because it was emerging media. I would have done the same thing. They were making big stories out of sometimes a very not bland narrative, but they were making more of kind of a pedestrian, innocuous sentence or comment. And that's how they were emerging.
Yeah.
And ESPN's management didn't quite know how to react. And I'm like, don't forget, fireworks show tomorrow morning. Just let it breathe, and generally the controversy dies down. Now, I don't think the blogosphere is as angry. I think they have more perspective. There's still too many shots taken, but I think by and large they've come down.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you're always going to be able to get traffic by going at somebody.
Rip you, me, you get how many
You get the
hits
car
you get.
crash traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's been a better blend. I'm happiest with, I think there's been some young voices that have come up.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if that would have been the case in the mid 2000s, but now you're seeing younger people. And, do you worry about Twitter at all and its effect on sports writing heading down the road? Because I just think of myself now in this day and age, if you put 24-year-old me now, and I could get immediate feedback for my jokes and my thoughts and my ideas, would I have spent as much time writing columns? I don't know. Like, would you have spent as much time figuring out a radio show if you could have just had an audience immediately?
Okay, it was very interesting. You said you were talking about the artist.
Yes.
Would I paint the same picture? No, but the audience doesn't want the same picture.
True.
So as an artist, you would probably not have the volume of your work, but you would be still writing quality work. I just literally finished a chapter in my book on this, that I think the good old days are overrated, that NPR is the most listened to radio network. Smart, witty. We're not a nation of nitwits. We've simply shifted our consumption. We're not dumber. IQ nationally is at 4%. SAT scores never been higher. All these technology companies are not coming from me. They're coming from 28-year-olds. Our consumption has changed. The witty still survive and flourish. You would have changed as an artist your canvas, but it would have still been an excellent picture.
Well, my whole thing is like, well, I don't know if I have the motor to write 3 times a week giant columns like I did in 2001 or 2002, but at the time that was the only way I had. That was the only form I had. So I poured everything into those 2 or 3 columns per week. Now I have all these different forums, and I think I probably have too many, because I have the NBA show, I have this podcast, I have Twitter. I have my column.
You and Levitard.
The blog post. Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've ever genuinely feel like, man, I might be overextended. I never wanted the column to be one of the things I was doing. And this is the first time I feel like, crap, that kind of inadvertently happened.
It's very difficult. When
you were overextended when you were doing Sports Nation and radio show.
Yeah,
at the same
but
time.
I think you're more intellectually overextended, which is more exhausting.
But you know what I mean, though. Like
I do.
You have to come up with angles every day. You're coming up with 4 hours of angles on your show, but then all of a sudden on Sports Nation now you get another hour of angles, and I don't know. It's
I tend
5 days a week you wear down.
It is. I'm not necessarily always a complimentary act. I'm a solo act, so you have to create a lot of a lot of topics, and it can be daunting. I mean, there's times that Thursday night I'm driving home and I'm shot. I'm a shot fighter. I got nothing left. And you have to just go to bed early. And so, I mean, there's no, here's the thing. It's a good problem to have. Bill Simmons is doing too much. You came from a non-traditional background.
Yeah.
So you have a sensibility, which is you've got that chip on your shoulder. Oh, I think that's incredibly valuable. Is that traditional anything is accustomed to an entrance? You're non-traditional.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
You have a sensibility, the Bill Simmons sensibility, despite oncoming or current wealth, you will always have it. It's in you. It's innate. So your non-traditional background is what fuels you. It's what Michael Jordan's like, dude, you got 5 rings. He was still angry at his high school coach. It never changed.
Thank you for comparing me to Michael Jordan.
There you go.
That was
You
a
compared
highlight
me
of
to
my
Mel
day.
on my radio show.
Yeah.
So your non-traditional background, it will ultimately be the driving force in your career. And my prediction with you is you will scale back, but your quality will never be reduced. It'll never be sacrificed.
It's interesting though. This is the first experience I've had. I've always had the luxury of anything I want to write about, I can put some thought into. I don't have to have the pressure of, like, if I had a daily show, to just be like, oh man, we talked about this yesterday, but we got to do it again today. Being on this NBA show has been really interesting. And 90% of it I like. The 10% I don't like is, all right, for the 10th time in the last 2 months, we're going to talk about, can the Lakers get the 8th seed? And I was thinking about like somebody like you're doing the show 5 days a week, your radio show you're on is 3 hours or 4 hours?
3 hours.
3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to run back topics because especially in that business where somebody might not hear you at 10:30.
Right.
And then not even know if you talked about Kobe. Like, do you ever feel like, man, I can't believe I got to talk about this again?
The guys that I work with are really good, and we create what we call a tree. So, big Laker game. Or let's talk about LeBron's winning streak, Miami's winning streak. That's the tree. We come in and create branches off the tree. The first branch is winning streaks are overrated. We build a 4-minute topic on that. The second thing is LeBron's playing too many minutes. It'll hurt him in the playoffs. And so we create branches off the tree. And that's kind of my theory of radio is that because one of the things in this business, you got to play the hits. The Weather Channel, when a big storm hits, doesn't go, hey, let's go sunshine in San Diego. That's not the way the business works. You stay on it for 7 days. Fox doesn't go to local Senate races. They stay on Obama, Romney. We get punished for staying on Favre retiring. What you have to do is use the topic and create branches off the topic. So that's what we do. Like today with Mello, I had, Mello is Moses, Mello Durant. And so you create, now it may sound similar, but in essence, you are giving the audience more. You're giving them a little treat at the end. So it's a very good question. We deal with it every day. But the one thing I try to tell people in the audience is we have to play the hits. When Britney Spears has a new song, it gets played twice an hour and the ratings go up. We're in the play the hits business.
Well, and the irony is, and this is the only thing I think is a little hypocritical when, and I listen, I don't want to defend ESPN. This is not what this is about. I'm just making a point.
Yeah.
ESPN gets criticized for beating the Brett Favre thing into the ground or beating Tebow in the ground or beating whatever into the ground. But you could argue, I've seen the blogosphere, they do the same thing sometimes where they beat the fact that ESPN is the devil into the ground. And it's like, it's all about, if you're sticking to some sort of shtick, which is pointing out constantly what the flaws are of ESPN and, oh my God, First Take, I can't believe they did this, blah, blah, blah. That's really no different than the network saying, hey, we're going to beat the Lakers into the ground again. I think everybody has a shtick. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, Jason McIntyre at the Big Lead, who wrote an article about me, so we are in contact more. Of all the blogosphere guys, he's the one I talk to, and I've asked him questions. I'll call and say, give me, what's the media traffic on this? Or what's the traffic, not the media traffic? And I think we share a respect that we're interested. The one thing I give him credit for, he understands the broadness of it now. It's about views and hits. We are not .orgs. I tell people this all the time. If somebody says, Colin, you talked about it 2 hours ago, and you're listening, I'm only paid for the first 12 you listen. The truth is, my audience is in and out constantly, and Jason and I talk about this. The shark video on the Big Lead, it draws eyeballs. It's not journalism, but it's interesting. Like, here's the thing. What's wrong with being interesting? But sometimes journalists are so ridiculous. And I'm not considered a journalist and not respected by writers, I get. But what is wrong with being interesting in life? In sports, if you're not great, get a team full of interesting guys. Rodman was interesting. What's the downside to that? We're too sanctimonious. Hell, it's sports. It's discretionary income. It's not my cable bill. So why are we? Let's not overthink the room. We don't need sports. It's opera.
And I would say everybody pays the bills. Like, the best media critic right now is Richard Deitch. But he also works for a site that runs a swimsuit issue every year that generates 80% of the income for that magazine. And you can't have it both ways. You say, well, ESPN's exploiting this, ESPN's exploiting that. Well, what's your swimsuit issue doing? So that's the thing. It's like, I think everybody who's involved in the media to some degree is relying on some sort of a shtick.
Listen,
just remember that when you're criticizing someone else's shtick.
Right. Olbermann was the liberal lightning rod in the country. He went to Current TV. I mean, it might as well have been a broom closet. There's only two teams in politics, liberals, Democrats. You and I deal with thousands.
Yeah.
So their business is easier. You're either on that team, the blue team, or the red team. So Olbermann was the lightning rod for the liberals. Goes to Current TV, disappears. What am I saying? We're all beans. You want to be at Starbucks. It just has more consumers than Caribou Coffee. So you can say, I'm an independent thinker. Good luck at Current TV. I left blankety blank network. Bye-bye. Try to reinvent yourself, Glenn Beck. I can't find you. We're all beholden to the store which broadcasts us. We're all beholden to that. So get over this. I'm an independent. No, you're not. None of us are independents here. None of us are Ross Perot. You got to sort of be at a store that people go into. So I one of the things I kind of not blanch at, but is this sort of like, hey, I don't need the corporate dollar. We all do. Or you become Keith Olbermann. By the way, Olbermann, I'm sure, will come back sometime, and he'll go to a store that's on the corner. It's just like real estate. Location's everything.
Olbermann might come back. To where? To ESPN.
Well, there's been discussions of that.
Then, yeah. I mean, that would be pretty interesting. Do you feel like you're talking for 3 hours a day, and we're in a culture right now where if you mess up, if you say something the wrong way, it's a YouTube clip immediately.
Yeah.
You get excoriated in various blogs. Like, do you ever feel like one of the things I admire about you is you'll always dance near the line.
Yeah.
And I think we do that. I'm able to do this on the podcast, but I also know on the podcast that if we ever cross the line or I say something, especially about ESPN, that I shouldn't say or might cause some waves, maybe we'll edit that out afterwards. Like, maybe we should massage that a little bit or whatever. You don't have that luxury on live radio.
No.
Do you worry about that line?
I don't worry about it. I'm cognizant of it. I'm aware that my career is a sentence away from ending. I've invested largely everything I've ever made. I am a guy that has protected myself and my family. So I'm aware of it. I think what happens, and this may seem unfair, Jon Stewart once said this, is that there's just enough truth in the liberal media bias thing that conservatives can hold on to it. There's just enough truth to it. There is a sense, I think, in political media that liberals do get a break over conservatives. And I voted for Obama, but my dad was a fiscal conservative and I am. So I'm kind of moderate, leaning socially left and fiscally right. that if you take the side of compassion and empathy, generally you can toe the line a little. You can push the envelope more. If a conservative politician says something and a liberal person says the same thing, and they're both uncomfortable, the liberal gets a little bit of a pass, because socially it has been it's not anti this marriage, not anti this. It tends to be a little more accepting and tolerant. Mm-hmm. And I think where I've grown, and I give all my critics credit for this, is that I listened to their criticism and I was aware of it. And I think too many people in broadcasting, what do they know? Well, some of their criticism was fair and reasonable. Some wasn't, some stuff taken out of context. But I think if anything, I've tried to be more empathetic and understanding that I am covering people that come from imperfect backgrounds and imperfect lives. Mine certainly qualifies as that. And I had comparatively a very good childhood. But I've tried to be more empathetic. And I think what that means, coming full circle, it'll give me a little more cushion on a bad day. If you do quality work over time, Bill, and you're seen as someone with perspective, you'll get a pass on the bad day. Like the liberal politician or the liberal politician get a little bit of a pass because they're viewed as more tolerant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I can't remember if I said this just now on the podcast or on your radio show, because they're blending in together in my head. But I was saying the thing I admire about your show is you're always taking angles on stuff. And whether I agree with those angles or I don't agree, if I'm in the car and you have some crazy whatever, at least I'll think like, that was interesting. And I think when you're in the sports media, that's the single best quality you can have right now. Is if there's a bunch of things you can do. You can write a really good, serious, long features, like something like what Ray Thompson did about Michael Jordan, which I thought was great.
Fantastic piece.
You can be just really consistently funny. Or you can do those two things, but then also occasionally, if you can consistently come up with angles and make people think, oh, that's interesting, I didn't think of that, or I don't agree with that. I think he sounded like a blowhard, but I'm also thinking about it. The one thing that I don't think you do is say stuff just to say stuff.
Won't. I've argued with producers. It's the producer's job. When me and Michelle did our show, I always told all the producers on Sports Nation, I'm not taking the angle you want me to. Here's what I think. You figure out somebody in the company that disagrees with me. I'm not making stuff up for you. So the pressure's on you, the producer. I'll tell you what I think. It's my radio show. Listen. Now you find somebody in the company that disagrees, bring them on, I'll argue. My job's not to fit into your argument. Your job's to find somebody that disagrees with my argument. And then I have told every producer, my radio show's my job. Find Stephen A. Smith disagrees, bring him on my show. But I'm not going to tweak it so it's a better segment. It's not my act. I'm not into it. If I get fired, I would always hold my head high. I say what I believe. I believe what I say. Often wrong. I butchered the bracket, the NCAA. I went non-chalk this year. I had a theory, totally blew up. I was wrong. It was a chalk. My theory was I watched 3 basketball games this year. I saw the result. TCU beat Kansas. Georgetown lost to South Florida, and Penn State beat, I think, Michigan. And on those 3 games, I said, okay, TCU is the worst program in the country. If they can beat Kansas, it's not a chalk year. I based it on those 3 games. I was completely wrong, and it was proven in the bracket.
They made us tape these things for the NBA show about the brackets, like tips for the bracket. And we did this before the tournament, and my tip was find people who don't know anything about college basketball and just get their advice. And I was like, my mom always either wins her bracket every year, finishes second, or just has a knack for it, doesn't watch any college basketball. My mom this year, after I taped that thing, my mom picked Louisville to win the title.
Holy.
She had Syracuse in the Final Four, and she had Florida Gulf Coast University in the Sweet 16.
And
she finished second in her bracket, in her giant office bracket, and almost won by 2 points.
Now, what was her Florida Gulf Coast rationale?
It's my mother. There's probably no rationale at all. She was probably having a glass of Chardonnay and just like this way Florida Gulf Coast. But, it's funny about in this day and age, especially on Twitter, and reader emails I've been getting since 1997. But it is funny when you're wrong. People get such sheer delight out of, Hey, what happened to that? I thought you said the Lakers were making the playoffs. And it's like, I say a lot of stuff. My goal is to bat what, 70%, 75%?
You're a conveyor belt of opinions.
Yeah.
Some of the things come off the conveyor belt. They're broken. It's not like every car that Ford puts out is perfect. It's like, oh, it's got like Brian Bosworth's story. Remember his story when he worked in the summer? Yeah, I used to put like bolts in the door and it would rattle around. I got bad cars off my conveyor belt once in a while. It's okay.
I have a 2004 draft diary where I make fun of Orlando over and over again for taking Dwight Howard over Emeka Okafor. The first pick. What morons they were.
I thought Juan Dixon was the next great player.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's tough. He is so good in big games. I'm like, wow, he's a tweener. He can't play.
Remember Omar Samhan?
Fortunately, no.
He was some center, I think, on St. Mary's in the NCAA tournament 3 years ago. I had a whole thing about how March Madness is a good way to study draft prospects, and I was saying how Omar Samhan was going to be really good. I have a lot of those in my archives. But the good thing is I was driving the Kevin Durant over Greg Oden bandwagon. So I can live off that for like another 5 years, I think. This is all through the 07 season. I was Durant.
I talked to Tom Penn about that. Tom Penn said, listen, we knew Durant was going to score 28. We got it. But we had Brandon Roy on the wing. He's like, we saw Bynum. We had to defend him. We didn't want to have another Lakers center own us for a decade. Yeah. And Penn's like, we knew Durant would score, but he'd probably take some shots away from Roy, who we thought, I mean, the Blazers got some lousy breaks.
Here's the thing. You can't take and you have a Portland background, so you know this better than anybody. Yeah. After you have the Bill Walton, Arvydas Sabonis, Sam Bowie threesome, you can't then take the center who has one leg that's 2 inches shorter than the other leg. You just can't. You just can't. It's over.
So you're saying
you take Kevin Durant or you trade down.
So you're saying just to protect your reputation.
I just feel like legacy matters at some point. I do believe in like the big picture, like all that stuff and the karma, and it's just.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not a karma believer.
I know you're not. That's one of the reasons if we had a show, we'd probably argue a lot about
that
stuff.
would be our. Beal and I had to find our it. We did a year in. Our it was. She's a crazy person.
Yeah.
And I am.
And she likes wrestling. And you think wrestling fans are booger eaters.
I just don't get it. I really don't. And it's so sad to me because you're so smart and you have such a full life.
In my defense, my son Ben, who's 5, eats his boogers, but doesn't watch wrestling. So I think you can be a booger eater and not like wrestling.
Listen, here's the thing. It's sad. I've known media members who I respect, and they watch wrestling. I just don't get it.
I love it. Beetle was front row.
Oh, God, she's absurd.
Front row. Going nuts. I was waiting for her to get thrown through the Spanish announcer's table.
Like, it's not real, of course.
What?
It's like, when did you discover? Like, there was a point you thought it was real.
All right, I'll tell you when I found out. My stepdad, the great Don Corbo, took me to MSG. Pedro Morales versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. We were in like the 6th row, and he took me specifically to prove to me that wrestling was fake.
This is Boston Garden.
He took me to MSG because we were in New York, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And one of them threw a punch at the other one and missed by a foot, and the guy flew backwards and landed.
So he only took you there for.
It was one of the reasons.
Okay.
But I still wasn't totally sold. I was like, maybe they were faking. There's another time I saw Big John Studd wrestle Bob Backlund in New York, and then the same match in Boston, and they ended the exact same way. And I was like, boy, that's fishy. What a weird coincidence. But when I found out for sure it was definitely fake, though? The Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan were feuding. Iron Sheik was from Iran. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was defending America. They were arrested together in the same car for marijuana possession. They were traveling together. And it was this news story. It was like, those guys are feuding. Why are they together? And then I was like, I can't fight anymore. I was probably like 16.
Okay. So up until then.
Kind of secretly was hoping most of it was real.
See, so here's the difference between you and I. I have discovered the it.
Yeah.
You have a little more of an escapist gene. You do like goblins.
Well, this is why you don't like fiction. You don't like fiction shows.
You don't like
Mad Men. You don't like any of this stuff. Yeah.
Not interested.
Yeah.
I want real life stuff.
You're a realism guy.
Not that I'm a realism guy, but my childhood, my psychology, I don't have time to waste.
So Kevin Ware breaks his leg. Did you watch the replay?
I'm not interested.
How many hours do you spend preparing for the radio show, which comes on at 10 o'clock?
If depending on what coast you live on, I would say I get in 2.5 hours before the show and 2 hours is hardcore. We have a system, our team, Vince Cates is my lead producer. We have a real system where I sit at a mic and I just talk and I bark and they get me stuff and we just fill stuff in, and we have, we have rants and ideas, and they've really learned. We do the tree and the branches, and we've figured it out. It's really, people come in and watch it and they're like, wow. Like management comes in and they like, management will come in a couple times a year to watch it and have young people watch how we do it. It's just, it works for me. It doesn't.
So you're like a jukebox, and they're like, Colin A7, Colin B16.
Yes.
Colin C2. Yeah. Do your rant on this. Do your hit on this.
It's unglamorous.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend back home. Oh, I want to come bring my kids to watch your show. I'm like, do they enjoy masonry? It's not. That's what it is. It's welding. It's not an attractive.
But here's the thing
process
that makes you stand out. And I only know this because I could never do this podcast by myself. Ask Jacoby, like when I do promos, I have trouble like even talking extemporaneously for 45 seconds if there's not a second person to bounce off
because
of.
you feel like, am I a weirdo?
I just can't do it. And when I listen to you and you're by yourself and you're talking for 9 minutes straight about something and you wrap everything up from beginning to end, I think that's a real talent. And like, I can't do that. I have to have a second person. I'm really good at playing off a second person. I am incompetent at if you maybe do a show by myself, it would be the worst radio show that's ever happened. I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, but did you grow up with brothers and sisters?
No, I didn't. The weird thing is I'm an only child, but here's the thing. You're the only person I've ever heard really do it. I mean, even when Jim Rome was doing it by himself, he was taking callers all the time.
Yeah.
But you can actually just do segments by yourself. And I don't know if like,
I think guys,
are you like a freak of nature? Like, no, I don't understand it.
No, I think Rush Limbaugh does it in radio. I think he does it politically.
Yeah, but when they do it in politically, though, it's like you're just a blowhard the whole time. That's how you do it. I don't feel like you're a blowhard.
Well, sometimes I probably am.
Some people probably do.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't feel like you are.
Critics do. But I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a gift. I think I grew up by myself a lot, and so I developed.
Were you like the kid who was talking to himself?
All day. So I made lineup cards out. And, I talked to myself and did games. So I would do games for hours in my yard by myself. So I grew up rurally. I didn't grow up in an urban environment with lots of friends. There were no play dates. Okay, so I didn't go to child care and develop these social relationships. I didn't have play dates. I grew up rurally by myself. My sister was older, 5 years older, so therefore we didn't hang out together. She was in high school and she didn't want to hang out with her. She's 17, right. I'm 12. So I did a lot of talking to myself, and I think over time I've developed that. I think anybody could have done it that had my life. I just think my life led me to that. Like I have a friend who, it's weird. Like I think everybody's got these weird gifts. I just happen to do my job publicly. But like I've met people before and I'm like, haven't you ever met somebody that has what would be considered kind of a regular job, but they have instincts based on doing it, like Malcolm Gladwell for 10,000 hours. And you're like, you go to a pizza place and the chef behind there and you're like, you just did bang, bang, bang. And he's like, it's just what I do.
Well, nowadays.
Have you ever seen anybody flip pizza? I'm fascinated by it. It's incredible. Like you're laughing at me now.
No, I'm not.
Have you ever seen?
I agree.
It is incredible. Like 8 people on the earth can do it well.
But if you were a kid now, you would have had an iPad and video games, and maybe you don't even do any of that stuff.
Well, that goes back to.
And you don't have a radio show.
Can I throw a theory at you?
Nobody's going to have talent in 20 years?
Is that great food comes from countries with dictators? Nobody orders Canadian. Nobody orders Australian.
Jacoby loves this. I hear him chuckling in the background.
Dictators, pain creates explosions of talent. That if you watch American Idol, Yonkers, too many kids, too few rooms is funny. La Jolla is obnoxious. No body fat, abs is not funny. Pain's funny. Yonkers, Schenectady, you lose electricity. It's what happens if you look at the way talent is created. It's created by unbalanced people, often motivated by fear or escapism. And that if you have a social net for everything and we're all safe all the time, where's the fear? I'm not driven by doing a good show. I'm afraid to be Vince Scully says this. I'm afraid to go on the air and have nothing to say, and I have 4.5 minutes left. Fear drives my entire show. It's driven my entire career. Fear of failure. Jerry Tarkanian told me, I don't remember any win. I remember losing 9 years to go to Santa Barbara. He goes, I have nightmares about it. So to me, I'm not rooting for poverty. But what I'm saying is failure Jordan's still mad about the high school coach. That's why he's
what's
great.
funny? When I spent all that time with Bill Russell, he's still mad at the San Francisco coach because Russell blocked a couple shots like in his first game for them. And the guy said, that's not how you play defense. And Russell's one of those, you get one chance with me. If you screwed up with me, you're out. I can never consider you again. And he's actually that way with a lot of things, including ESPN.
He's very mad at ESPN.
He hates ESPN.
Doesn't like us at all.
And that's why I had to do that documentary with NBA TV. But I think those great competitors are like that. They one slate, and that's it. And I wonder sometimes maybe that was the gene that LeBron was missing, and somehow he's kind of acquired it.
That's a very good thought.
Like people beat him up so badly for 2 years, and almost like we beat that gene into him.
So Jordan is very interesting. Jordan, after Worthy leaves.
No, after
Worthy goes to the NBA, so we got 2 years without.
North Carolina.
So here's Jordan's DNA. Didn't make the team as a sophomore. Dean Smith wouldn't let him shoot as much as he want. Goes to the NBA with Brad Sellers. I think he had Gervin.
Yeah.
People taking shots from him.
Yeah.
Detroit beats him up. He has so much hate and anger. He knows he's this unique operatic star, and he can't sing. It's like, I'm the best. And he kept being blocked. Dean Smith. Brad Sellers taking my shots, or whoever it was on that team.
His wife
Quentin Daly.
His wife dated Reggie Theus before him. He was mad about that. Every time they played Reggie Theus, he would kill him.
So now, let's go to LeBron.
Yeah.
Called the king at 16.
Yes. Child actor, like Justin Bieber now.
Got everything he wanted. Nike steps up. They paid him before he got into the league. There's
Yeah.
no anger. In fact,
can you be describing Tiger Woods too? He kept that anger for a while, and then, where is it now?
Pat Riley said in Dan Le Batard article in the Miami Herald that, and I thought it was really, I told you this, that he called LeBron's early days frivolous. Jordan was never frivolous. He was ticked off. I think what you said is interesting. LeBron got beat up, bad guy post-decision, and that ignited the venom needed, the killer instinct needed. So again, we go back to my theory on dictators and great food. Failure, abject failure, being mocked, being ripped nationally is what made LeBron the player he is.
Well, and also, I wrote about this recently. Game 6 against Boston last year, one of the great fork in the road moments in the history of not just the NBA, of any sport, because if they lose that game, and people forget now, the beating that Miami took after Game 5, it was 2-2 that series. Boston wins Game 5. Pierce and KG are taunting LeBron the whole game, getting really personal with him. They lose. It's going back to Boston, Game 6. I flew back on 4 hours' notice. I had to be in the building for that game because LeBron James's career was going to go one way or the other that night. He comes out like an assassin.
Greatest overall.
One of the great things I've ever seen in my life in person. Just comes out with this look on his face and just kills everybody. Destroys the Celtics, and his career has never been the same since. He pushed himself 9 levels up. Now I think he's the 7th best player of all time.
Well, let's go. Hold on. So Jacoby's laughing at my Italian conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. I want 6 players better than LeBron.
So I did this in my book. This was a big part of my book. I had Jordan first, Russell second, Kareem third, just because of the breadth of his career. Okay. Won the Finals MVP in 71 and 85, 15 years apart. Incredible.
So you're counting centers who just hit the genetic lottery. That's kind of unfair.
Great. Skyhook was the single most unstoppable shot of all time.
Not
the
if
most
he's
automatic
not
2
if
points.
6'1".
I don't care. It's not his fault he was 7'4". He used his gifts.
He hit the genetic lottery. How do you count
the 3rd
centers?
best basketball player of all time.
Okay.
Then Magic Bird, in that order, because Magic had 3 more years, basically. Wilt 6.
Oh, come on. He did. You think LeBron was flaky? Wilt was flaky.
I'm not happy with the Wilt ranking, but it is what it is. He scored 100 points in a game and had 55 rebounds in a game. He averaged 50 points a game for a year. He played 48.5 minutes a game one season. Like, you just go on down the line, it's like, oh my God, what happened?
If he wanted to lead the league in anything, he just did.
Led the league in assists, but got traded twice. Everybody from that generation hated playing with him, didn't want to play with him. So that's why I'm 6. I have LeBron now over Kobe and Duncan, just because 4 MVPs.
Where's Hakeem?
Hakeem's like 12.
It's a little low.
But 4 MVPs, 5 years. It's one of the 4 greatest 5-year stretches anyone's ever had.
Lonnie
if they win 2
Shelton
titles.
anywhere in there?
Lonnie Shelton's not in there.
All right.
DJ's in there, though.
Well, you would like. Well, actually, you should both like DJ.
Finals MVP, 79.
No, he was. What about Paul Westphal?
Paul Westphal had in the 70s.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
This is a weird question. This is an old guy question. We'll date ourselves here.
Well, we're both old, so that's.
When's the last time you
happen.
cried watching sports?
Last time that got multiple laughs.
Paul Westphal made me cry like twice. As a Sonics fan, you'd go down to Phoenix. Paul Westphal made me cry as a kid that loved the Blazers and Sonics. He absolutely, Alvin Adams, Westphal, ambidextrous, murdered us. I cried. When's the last time you bawled?
Twice as a kid. When Len Bias died. When Reggie Lewis died.
Yeah.
That was it. I mean, from game related, can't remember.
Ever thrown anything at a TV?
Oh, yeah. Recently.
I threw a shoe during a USC Oregon State game. Didn't cover. I was furious.
Really?
That was bad.
When was the last time you cried as a kid? Westfall?
No.
Or from sports?
I contend it's in late 70s. Bob Bailey, the Red Machine. Big Red Machine was, Rose Perez, Concepcion, all the great players.
I'm aware. They beat the Red Sox for the 75 World Series.
So it was dying off.
Yeah.
And they had like Bob Bailey, who wore one of those Olerud helmets.
Yeah. Big,
thick guy, couldn't do anything but hit. And it was a Cardinals Monday Night Baseball game with like Euchre and Keith Jackson or something.
Yeah.
And it was bases loaded late, Monday night game meant nothing. Al Roboski comes up. Reds have the bases loaded. I think Foster hit before him maybe, or Foster was gone. And Bob Bailey came up bases loaded and struck out. And I was on my mom's orange couch and I cried. And I remember my mom saying, well, don't they play a lot of baseball games? I didn't have the context at the time. It was a big game. My great bench Rose team was dying.
Yeah.
Bob Bailey destroyed us. Al Roboski, I believe, was on the mound. It was a Monday. It was 77.
The Mad Hungarian.
Yeah, it crushed me.
Bob Bailey had a huge strikeout in the Bucky Dent game. Red Sox fans hate Bob Bailey. We got him tail end of his career. He's going to be the big pinch hitter.
People in Massachusetts hate a lot of things.
Here's the thing with Massachusetts.
You're one of the only likable people from that state ever.
Stop it.
Boston's angry.
It's cold weather. It's angry. It's provincial.
It's cold in Minneapolis. They're friendly Norwegians.
It's the most provincial place on the planet. We kicked the British out. It's 1770s. Who kicked the British out? Massachusetts.
Did you ever watch that in the History Channel?
What?
The whole Tea Party. It's fascinating.
Yeah. That was the classic Boston moment.
Oh, I got a Boston theory.
Get out of here, British.
I got a Boston theory. Can I throw it to you? You got a minute left?
Yeah, you have a minute left. You're the one who has to leave.
So in my book, I was thinking about saying this. There's a reason, there's an arrogance and a parochial kind of nature, as you noted, to Boston. Here's my theory. So when you're in 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th grade and you're taking those history classes, and I took them in Seattle, but my teacher said, out in Boston, they had this. But a Boston kid hears, it was right down the street.
Yeah.
So there is a sense between kids in New England, hey, we are the country. Because when you learn as a kid about America's history, it all started here. So there is a sense of importance, and certainly it was valid for a long time, that this is the centerpiece of...
It's a self-importance, yeah.
Right. But it all starts in that 6th, 7th, 8th history class.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right down the street. By the way, we're taking a bus right before lunch. We're going to go look at it.
Yeah, and that's where we killed the British people. And then we made them leave.
Do you buy it a little bit?
Oh, 100%.
That's self-imposed.
The best thing about Boston is that we feel like... I still use we, even though I haven't lived there in 12 years. Boston people feel like it's the center of the universe.
Oh, yeah.
And if you leave, like I get emails all the time from people, they're mad that I live in Los Angeles. Why would I leave? You left here? Why would you do that? And I feel that way half the time too, but you're not supposed to leave Boston because it's the greatest place on the earth. We have the best teams. Like that's the mentality that you grew up with. Our teams are the best. Our history matters the most. All of the most tragic sports events that have ever happened only happen to us and no other teams. Like that's just the way you think.
I like of the media people in Boston. I know Ryan, Bob Ryan's nice, right? Do you get along with him? What's your
love him?
Okay, what's your situation with the Boston media?
Probably not great.
Okay,
Yeah, when I was coming up, I did the thing that everybody does, which was you take shots at the people who do better than you. Yeah. But Bob Ryan, was the biggest reason probably I wrote that NBA book, because it was the book I always wanted him to write, and he just never did.
Yeah.
But he's the commish. The best thing about Bob Ryan is he retired, and now he's working harder than he did when he was working. It's like, I thought you retired. Shouldn't you be in Florida, like playing canasta?
Yeah, but
no, he's like covering the Final Four.
I say this in my book. Retire to what? I don't work at a lug nut factory. Retire to what?
Retired from talking about sports?
Hey, I'm going to go golf. All right. I did that.
There are times to retire. The times to retire are when you still work in sports, but you don't like sports anymore. Okay. And that's when people, my feeling is the readers and the viewers can sense that. And there are people out there that we won't mention, but if you don't like sports, we can tell. And if you're not watching, and if you're just coming up with angles just because even you're detached, but you're just, you have to hand in a column that day, that's when you get into trouble.
How about this? This is my favorite. When people say, oh my God, I wanted to retire. I want to travel the world. My wife always says this. Okay, you were 54. Now you're 57. You got 20 more years. Like, can't you travel while you work? Like, I'm not anti-travel, but you hear that. Okay, I want to travel the world. Okay, I go to the Galapagos Islands. I see the devil cat. I see the flying eel. I go to the Galapagos Islands. I see all the crazy stuff. The shark with 4 eyes. Wow. 4 days later, I'm home. Like, this idea that I'm just going to go, like, I'm going to be like, I'm going to travel every day. Who wants to travel? I want to eat Greek yogurt. Who wants to travel every day? That's work. Have you ever traveled? Have you been to an airport? It's horrible.
I went to a vacation with my family last month. Yeah, it's work. And then we were in Mexico, and then the last day, my son and my wife got Montezuma's Revenge, and then the next day, and it's like, I got home, I needed a vacation from the vacation.
Yeah, so this idea.
I now need to go away for 3 days to recover from going away.
Exhausting.
Yeah, it's awful.
Unless you have like net jets, and I'm never going to go there. So what's the point? I can't do that. It's just not right. I don't want to talk about that. I would hope
not. You're not a billionaire. Colin Cowherd. So you got the book coming out you're working on?
November it's coming out, working with ESPN magazine writer who
your radio show.
Yeah.
And then the dramatic 30 for 30 you're doing called Beetle and Me, which premiering in September.
God, you know what?
Should be emotional.
She occasionally
our first ever platonic romantic comedy documentary.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good, right?
She was good. Carissa was good as well. They were just different acts.
I will tell you this. I've done TV with a few people at this point. Beetle is the best person I've ever done TV with by far. There's something, certain people have a quality. The camera goes on and it's like an on-off switch. And she has that. And it's amazing. And it's something that I don't have because I'm a writer. And I just think it's a very rare talent.
You have attractive eyes.
Thank you. I can't describe it.
And almost a European skin.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
I do. Can I tell you the story?
Somebody can be in a salty mood,
and
that camera goes on, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, it's like, whoa, what just happened?
I interviewed 7 people, and she came in, and 20 seconds in, I covered. We were wearing mics. We were doing, what do you call those, run-throughs or, And I'd never met Beetle, and she came in, and she did it, and I covered my mic. 20 seconds, and I'm like, you got the job. Let's just play to the cameras. You're gonna get the job. Instantly.
Yeah.
Like her talent was so clear that it was 20 seconds in. I'm like, boom, it's your job. And by the way, the other people were really good. It wasn't like they were stiffs.
Right.
Like she beat out really good people. Instantaneous. And her best quality is that she was not intimidated by ESPN. Like her thing was, there was this sort of like, you are so lucky to have me. Right. Everybody else was like, oh my God, it's ESPN. Oh my God. She walked in. She's like, yeah, big deal. You guys are going to be better with me. And I was like, that's exactly what Jamie Horowitz and I and Kevin Wildes were looking for in Jacoby. Like there was like something like she was not intimidated by the room. And she was great. She punched back. Somebody, they had to be able to take a punch.
You're talking about the polarizing, controversial wonderkin, Jamie Horowitz?
It's incredible, really. He's literally developed a new role in American media.
He's got nouns in front of his name now.
Literally, there's never been a controversial producer. And Mark Burnett, maybe, for like an hour. But like Jamie's created a new industry.
Not since Vince McMahon has somebody been able to create a character around being a suit like this. It's very exciting.
It's fascinating. I love his career.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want it, but I've been fascinated.
We called him the Suit for years and years, and now it's like he should just change his name to the Suit. It should be his nickname, his full-time professional nickname.
We love you, Jamie. We love you.
Colin Cowherd, good luck with everything. Thanks for coming in. See you soon.
Thanks, Bill.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.